Hello everyone, my name is Legend Ronnie and this game is Rise of Kingdoms, and today I'm gonna dedicate my day for AETHEFLAED, Queen of free-to-play AoE. Now what does AoE means? Means area of effect, means everything that does group damage or hit multiple targets. PvP means player versus player. I have these questions, people are asking me what is that supposed to mean, what is that meaning, so I'm just trying to get it off. Right, she is an expedition commander. That is the only way you can obtain her sculptures. In terms of stars, so I'm just gonna get this out of the way. In terms of stars, the average or the amount of stars that you would need to max her out, it is around 613. Well, that's not really exactly very convenient for a free-to-play, but in the end this is one legendary commander that you will be able to max out, and with the recent update you can get a lot of her sculptures from the expedition, and we're gonna get to that as well. And this is the total amount of sculptures in the end that you will spend on her to max or her skills out and obtain her expertise. I'm gonna get this out of the way. And I also want to mention the talents only work from the primary commander. It applies to the second command, it applies to your army, but they only work from the primary one. Right. Now about her skills, let's get that out of the way, because I also have a rally going on to explain the fourth one. So first skill, it says deal damage up to 5 enemies in a forward facing fan shaped area, damage factor 800, reduce their attack, defense and health by 30%. While that sounds a lot, and it doesn't just sound, it is a lot. Attack, defense and health by 30% for the next 2 seconds. It's quite huge, but it's only 2 seconds, and that doesn't give me any high hopes that, you know, it's quite anything that lasts under 3 seconds, it's pretty bad. Everything that lasts 4 seconds or 5 seconds or even higher, I'm not sure if there is higher, but that is really good. So 4-5 seconds or higher, that is really good. Anything that is 3 seconds or lower is pretty bad. It's too short amount of time to actually make a difference. The reason I'm saying that is because if it reduces defense, then you need very good synchronizations that some of the commanders that are actually hitting the target you're debuffing will actually do some skill damage. So that way you'd actually see a difference when that defense, you know, is being reduced. So the time frame is actually too short to actually deal some skill damage in the same time. It's not gonna happen. That's why Barca is so good on reducing defense, because it lasts for 5 seconds. Also, her main damage factor has been cleared out. It's just 800. It's not double time, it's just one time 800 and 5 enemies. Now one important thing that you need to notice is that the damage is not being reduced if you're hitting 5 enemies or 3 enemies. So it's 800 for each one. Now the reason I'm saying that is because we have our boy YSG, who is the king of AoE. If she is the queen, this guy is the king. And you're noticing over here that it says damage dealt to each target will reduce by 15% for each additional target. So that means when you're hitting 5 targets, it should be around 60% additional damage reduction, because you're hitting additional 4 more targets, including to the main one. So when this guy hits 5 targets, you should do around 60% less damage. Now if you take 60% of 1700, is about 1020 damage factor, so that brings his damage factor to 700 when he hits 5 targets. Now you also need to take in consideration that this guy has Destiny and the name fits very well, and increase active skill damage by 50%. Plus he's usually being used with archers and he boosts archers, so even if the direct damage factor goes lower than AETHEFLAED, in the end he's still gonna do way more damage than AETHEFLAED because of the rest of his skills. And same is, for example, Sun Tzu, which also does a significant amount of AoE damage, area damage, 800 damage factor, and then plus 200 on the next turn. it's also not being diminished if he hits more targets. So it's gonna be the same for each target. So it's just for YSG, just to clarify that part when he hits multiple targets. Right. I would say that is decent, but I'm not really hyped about it, to tell you the truth. I would rather prefer some epics if I would have to go to battle with this girl, and we're gonna get forward with the skill, and I'm gonna explain the other ones. We have counter-attack damage taken reduction by up to 20%, and then she has a 10% chance of reducing march speed or cavalry by 50% or other units by 30%. Well, that's pretty interesting, but again, as I said, it's 3 seconds. So anything that is 3 seconds or lower is not so great. Everything that is 4 seconds or 5 seconds, it's okay. It's very good. So yeah, it's just 3 seconds slow with a 10% chance. Doesn't give me a lot of confidence that you can actually lock down a target with march speed. Plus, march speed reductions, they don't stack. So if someone else does a march speed, is just cancel this one. So let's say AETHEFLAED and Richard does in the same time. Richard only lasts for 2 seconds. Richard will just cancel her, and it will be only for 2 seconds, depending which one done it first. I'm not sure how exactly it works, but I know it doesn't stack. The march speed reduction, it doesn't stack. They just cancel each other. The skill, they just cancel each other. You guys can check the battle logs if you wanna clarify on that. But then it has counter damage taken reduction. Now, when would this actually be very beneficial for you? There's 3 commanders that I have in mind that actually have increased counter-attack damage. So that is Scipio, counter-attack damage bonus increase 25%. After that is Charles Martel, 30% when this skill is maxed out, counter-attack damage increase. And then we have Richard I, which also has a 10% counter-attack damage bonus. Now this is usually infantry, and that's where Scipio usually is being used with infantry, which infantry is usually being avoided or usually hit it at last. The reason why infantry is really so good is because they are very tanky, and with the amount of counter-attack, whenever they get swarmed, with the amount of counter-attack they have, they do a lot of damage to everyone that is actually hitting them. That's why infantry is still being used, and they are still so good. Right. Counter-attack damage reduction, that's when it's actually gonna benefit you. Obviously, cavalry do counter-attack and archers do counter-attack, but they mostly do damage with skills, so they don't actually damage you with counter-attacks or normal attacks. That's the benefit. That's what they damage you with most, with skills. So again, very situational when this counter-attack damage taken reduction will help you. And then this is the golden apple, or this is the, you know, the cherry on top of the cake, or how would you like to call it, is the experience bonus. And this is why I call her the free-to-play AoE queen, is because this is what I would advise you to use her, just to do AoE barbarians. Now obviously, if you're a paid player and you actually spend the time in the game, then it's actually good for you. This only the best commander for AoE is YSG when it's expertise, but that is an expertise legendary. This girl is the second one. The reason is because the shape of their skills. So YSG has a circular area when he's expertise. That means 360 degree. AETHEFLAED have a semicircle, which means 180 degree area when she is using her main skill. So you have a very high chance of capturing a lot of barbarians and keep going, or chain reaction barbarians through barbarians. You also deal bonus extra damage to them or neutral units, and you gain extra experience. So this is where AETHEFLAED is going to excel at. She is the 3rd commander in the game that actually has bonus experience that you gain from barbarians or neutral units. We have Boudica with 20%, we have Lohar with 70% bonus, and now we have AETHEFLAED with 35% bonus. But again, keep in mind she's a legendary. To start her up, it might be quite costing. But this is what I would use her. And now there is the 4th skill of her, which it might be confusing a little bit in the wording, so I've done something just to clarify that. In terms of the rally army capacity bonus. So I launch a rally, and I just wanted a couple of people to join me just to clarify. So I started with Genghis Khan, level 60, 210,000. That's his limit of troops, and AETHEFLAED a second. My usually rally capacity when you rally a player is 2.4 million. Now, because I have AETHEFLAED with another 4%, that's 2.480. So that's where the extra 80,000 is. Now, if other players join my rally, it's still not adding an 8% to their march speed, so it doesn't affect their march speed. It just affects the rally, so the rally can be higher. That means that with a maxed out AETHEFLAED and a maxed out Mehmed, you can launch 2.8 million rally. Another better example, level 60 Pelagius, 200,000, then it's 59 Belisario, 60 Hannibal, 200k. So it's not boosting the marches of players, it's just boosting the rally. And luckily there is someone who is using AETHEFLAED, so that was a display of how her main skill works. So she has an 180-degree angle compared to the other commanders which have around 180, like Sun Tzu or Babers or any other AoE commanders. So I don't have to use her, you guys can use her on the battlefield and understand what I'm trying to say. Now, the other part of the 4th skill is the bonus damage when she is using 3 types of units. Now, many people are saying that that is a lot of bonus and she will do great with the mixed rally of troops. She also debuffs the target. I already talked about her main skill. The damage factor is low. The attack, defense and health is for very short time. And honestly, it was never proven that mix of troops can actually excel on the battlefield. If there is a video about that, please share me the link where mix of troops actually beat specific troops, and I'll be happy to watch it. But it's still specific troops or using just one type of troops with specialization commanders is still much better than using mixture of troops, regardless of the bonus they get. I mean, the bonus needs to be really high to actually make a difference. Then she has her expertise deal an extra 20% damage to enemies who have been slowed. It doesn't mention that you need to have mix of troops in your group, so it doesn't. So you can do that with specific type of troops. So she can be used with specific type of troops. You'll just not benefit from this bonus damage when you have 2 types of troops. So again, my advice is where you could use her or how would be the best to use her is as a booster for your commanders. So now you can have 3 boosters. You can have Lohar, you can have Boudica, and you can have AETHEFLAED, which you can use them to boost your commanders that you're actually leveling up. And that's where I would highly recommend to use her. Just don't forget about the amount of stars that you need to max her out. You might just want to keep her at 5 star. At 5 star she will have a decent amount of talents that you can play around with, and obviously she's a peacekeeper in the same time. So there is a decent amount of talents once she gets to level 50 at 5 star, so you can keep her there for a very long time. I personally do the same with double C, just because the amount of star that is required. So I use him as a peacekeeper, the way he is right now, just at 5 star level 50, and he's doing great. Troops capacity is quite alright. So the cost of star, it's you don't really need to get her, for example, to 6 stars just to kill some barbarians or neutral units. Now, I did mention about her talent. I'm just gonna show you the talent that I would recommend for her. So this would be the talent build that I would recommend for her, and I'm just gonna explain a little bit so it's not confusing why in the picture there is pink as well. Now the reason I put pink in the picture, you're noticing that there is the fresh recruits, there is the trophy hunter, and there's the thoroughbreds. You do not need those talents if you're going to rally force. So it says here alternative for rally force, replace the cross and do the circles. So you have the circles to do extra damage, or you know, all damage increase when you're launching a rally, and taking less damage from the skill. Obviously the forts do skill damage. So if you want to use her to rally force or barbarian force, you just have to replace the crosses and do the pink circles. But my suggestion is just keep her for barbarians. There are much better commander for forts that you can use, which will probably do a lot more damage than her. So just keep her for AoE farming. If you're free to play, this is something you need to get acquainted with by doing a lot of AoE farming, because you cannot afford to spend the money that someone spends in the game, like I spend, because I also spend in the game. If you cannot afford that, then you need to get acquainted with a lot of AoE farming. Doing AoE farming barbarians, you also become an expert at it. One, so you can chain barbarians longer and longer, and two, you get free stuff by keep killing barbarians using less amount of action points. So it's only in your benefits on keep doing that. If you want to use her for PvP, I would probably do the talent build a little bit different. So if I would have to use her for PvP, it might be slightly different, maybe just the trophy hunter, and I would not go in that part of the peacekeeping. I would probably try to get emergency protection, just drop trophy hunter. But even for PvP, I will still keep this peacekeeping part with thoroughbreds, because there is a lot of march speed. There is 18% march speed that you can get. Is not something you want to sneeze at. Obviously you want a fresh recruits and you want a strategic prowess. Now if you want to use her with mix of troops, if you think that's something or is that your style, you definitely need to get at least armored. If you want to get armored as well, then you definitely need to drop some peacekeeping talents. You need to drop some march speed so you can get armored as well, because you don't want to skip rejuvenate. In any situation, you don't want to skip that, and you don't want to skip loose formation for PvP. Those are really needed. She also has hasty departure, so it kinda gives her some ability of moving from buildings to buildings, but still having static march speed, or you know, something that is all the time, march speed that is all the time, it also helps you overall. Again, my advice for her is just barb hunting, AoE barb hunting, and if you're free to play, I highly recommend that you get better at it. Now, my advice, who you could pair her, you can pretty much pair her with anyone you want. So any commander you want to level up, her as a primary commander, the commander you want to level up as a secondary commander, preferably not a peacekeeper. That's why peacekeeper are made for, they are made to be primary commanders when you're killing barbarians or neutral units. Neutral units are guardians. So guardians grant you a large amount of experience, especially for players who still have Lost Kingdom, or they are still in the Lost Kingdom. There's a lot of guardians which grant you a lot of experience, and commanders like AETHEFLAED, Lohar or Boudica will just boost that amount of experience so you can gain even more experience. I remember at some point with Lohar I was reaching 55,000 experience for my Saladin. So my Saladin at some point was gaining 55,000 experience when I was killing the Ziggurat Guardians. So that's how far you can get, 55,000. I imagine how many barbarians you have to kill to get 55,000, and I was getting that for one Ziggurat Guardian. So if you do the math, it's highly worth it to use peacekeeping. But yeah, I recommend it for that. Now this is pretty much what I have to say about AETHEFLAED. An only additional thing, if I would have to use her for field battles, if you actually insist on trying to do that and using her for field battle, my only recommendation would be with Hannibal Barca, and I would recommend her to be the primary. The reason is because you'll have a lot more march speed from the talent builds, and then you have rejuvenate. So you're basically going to use her as a support, because she's going to debuff for 2 seconds, and the time between the first skill and the second skill is 2 seconds. So if she's going to debuff for 2 seconds, then Hannibal Barca is going to be the second in command, and he's going to debuff for 5 seconds. So then you're going to have a 7-second debuff on that target. The damage will be low. You can also use mix of troops with both of them, so that means that you'll get bonus for mix of troops on her, 20%, and then you'll get bonus on mix of troops from Barca, which is pretty great. And I will say that if you actually want to use mix of troops, this would be kinda the only pair where these two commanders fit, with AETHEFLAED leading and Barca as a second in command. Now this would be my advice for PvP. As I said, killing barbarians or guardians, anyone can be second in command to AETHEFLAED. That's pretty much about this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, this is your boy Legend Ronnie signing off. Peace out, yo, and take care.